Robert Plank Show, episode 126 Courses, Webinars, and Funnels. Attract customers and clients with Brian Lofrumento. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Robert Plank Show, where we talk about making money online. Our guest today is Brian Lofrumento. He is an entrepreneur, speaker, and author. He's made a thing called the Ultimate Profit Model, and he's written a book called Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur. So Brian is an internet entrepreneur, speaker, and author whose businesses have reached over 3.5 million people in over 200 countries. He built a six-figure SEO agency at the age of 24 and has helped over 50 clients from around the US and over 3,000 students from around the world grow and automate their businesses by implementing high converting sales and marketing funnels. Sounds like lots of good stuff. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thanks, Robert. I'm super excited to be here and give your audience some awesome value here today.
Awesome. So like what? So like what exactly is it that you do, and what makes you unique and special?
Yeah, great question. That's a loaded question, Robert, to start this out, but I love it. So the big thing that I do is I really take people from saying, okay, I really want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know where to go, to packaging it up, whether it's a product or a service or an online program, something that can pull in some serious profits for them, high profit margins, and I help them find a market of people who are looking to actually buy that product or service.
So cool. Exactly how far do you take it? Like, have you dealt with clients who just have absolutely like no idea what to do, or some who have like a half-written book? I mean, do you narrow down their niche? Like, how far do you go with that?
Yeah, so actually, there's an easy way to answer that question. The first thing that I always do with people is I ask them, who the heck are you trying to serve? Because a lot of people, when they do come to me, they say, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't have a business idea. And I always argue that you don't actually need a business idea. You just need to determine and decide on who it is that you want to serve. I mean, for example, one of my most successful students that I've worked with, he's a high school soccer coach. And he wanted to be an entrepreneur, but he didn't know exactly what to do. He had no business idea. So I asked him, who does he want to serve? And he said he wanted to help other soccer coaches become better coaches. So once he decided on who he wanted to serve, I simply asked him, well, what's standing in between them and the result that they want, which is to become better coaches? And he started listing everything out. He said they don't know how to plan practices. They don't know how to deal with parents. They don't know what nutrition and fitness advice to give their players. So he went through all these things and we packaged it up into a $997 inner circle. And he sells that to coaches all around the country so that they can learn from him. They can get weekly access to him and go through these training modules that he has. So it literally is from idea to actual execution and launch. And I love seeing my students go, while they're working with me, go from $0 to $10,000 a month.
And that's pretty cool. And I think that what was packed in there a little bit is just the idea that, I mean, you don't have to come up with a crazy fancy idea in there. Like you said, just figure out who you want to serve. And that kind of reminds me of early on for me, I was trying to think of like what my next like product or software program should be. And one of my mentors at the time just said, well, something that's hot right at that moment was like affiliate marketing. So he was like, well, put together some kind of like set of tools that helps affiliate marketing. And I asked him, well, doesn't that kind of thing already exist? And he said, well, yeah, but that it doesn't have to be something that's brand new and groundbreaking. It doesn't have to be like Uber or Facebook. And then there was something I saw maybe a few months ago from the creator of Alibaba who said something like, it doesn't matter if the thing you're creating is stupid, it matters if people use it. So like, Instagram, Snapchat, PayPal, stuff like that. It's like, well, it doesn't have to be this huge, groundbreaking, mind-blowing thing. Just it has to be something that catches on.
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on, Robert. And you had a few really good points in there. And I love the argument. Entrepreneurs and wantrepreneurs, they always have that argument of, oh, well, there's somebody else doing it. Imagine if Mark Zuckerberg didn't start Facebook just because MySpace was already doing it. Imagine if, name any business book. Imagine if that was never written because there were already other business books. No one can do exactly what it is that you want to do exactly the way that you can do it. You are the only person on the planet that can do that thing in your unique way. So even if 50 million other people have done it, no one's ever done it like you. So yeah, that's a great argument.
So, I mean, let's kind of unpack that a little bit, because one thing I'm always kind of curious about, and especially in this kind of thing where like you're a coach of people, like, is there a set of steps or like kind of like a process you go through? Like if you have one of these people like that soccer dad, where he has an idea and you flesh out his idea, and then after that point, like what's the next step? What do you set up for him?
Yeah, good question. So for me specifically, well, actually, I'll answer it more broadly and then we'll get into me specifically. Once you've actually got your product flushed out or your service flushed out, there's really only one thing you need to focus on in order to have a business. And that's to attract customers and clients. Anything else you're doing is totally superficial. I mean, if you spend your time getting a logo and doing all these surveys with your potential people, that's all great, but unless you actually have sales coming in, you don't have a business. So, what I do specifically with the soccer coach, for example, and thousands of my other students, is I help them set up an online system that one attracts potential customers and two turns those customers into clients. So, I'm a huge fan of the webinar model right now. I mean, the webinar model is how I've grown my business over the past 2 or 3 years. It's how I've helped countless students do the exact same thing. Webinars are great because there's no quicker way online to find people totally from scratch through Facebook ads is what I recommend. Warm them up because you give them value over the course of a webinar and then invite them to work with you. Even if only 2% of people ever work with you, that's the mechanics of a $10,000 per month business right there.
So speaking of like webinars and things like that, and you're running Facebook ads, I mean, how do you how do you figure out like the hook and the content for a webinar, and how do you get some butts in seats for that kind of thing?
Yeah, great questions. So I'll answer the first question first, which is the content of the webinar, because people always freak out about that. And I've got a really simple formula that I share with my students. This is actually a great question, Robert. You pried this out of me. Usually I reserve this stuff for my students in my programs. But the answer is that what you really need to do, it's very simple. You need to figure out what people's existing beliefs are when it comes to whatever your product or service is. So I guess we'll keep running with the soccer coach example because that's something tangible for a lot of people. So when the soccer coach approached me and he said, "Well, what am I going to put in a webinar?" You have to acknowledge what are their existing beliefs about coaching soccer? So one of the existing beliefs is that if my players aren't technically sound, there's no way that they can win, and it's going to be really hard for me to get them to improve. That's an existing belief. So on your webinar, you want to acknowledge the existing beliefs, shatter that belief, and rebuild those beliefs. And if you can do that about three existing beliefs, you've got enough content for a webinar right there.
And that's pretty cool. So that's as far as and so for this kind of thing, like, do you have your clients, do they usually have like a set amount of time, set length of time, set number of slides, stuff like that?
So I'm not a big fan of like numbers or anything like that. I mean, thinking back to high school, how much did we all hate when teachers said, "Oh, it's got to be a 4-page paper" or
Oh
something
yeah, I
like
hated
that?
that too.
Oh, it's the worst. So I really stick to typically about an hour because people allot it in their calendar for an hour to show up for a webinar. So hour-long webinars are really successful. I've seen people succeed with shorter webinars, with longer webinars, but I never get into like number of slides or anything like that with them.
Okay, fair enough. So you figure out all that existing beliefs, shatter, and rebuild, and then if they don't have a list to fill up that webinar, then what's the plan?
Yeah, so Facebook ads is an absolute gold mine right now. That's my overwhelming answer to pretty much most people's business problems is that if you can master Facebook ads, you can reach as many people as you want and as you can afford as quickly as you want to. So Facebook ads is really great because you can target people based on anything. I mean, if you ran a business where your ideal customers were 36-year-old females who live in the Upper East Side of New York who drive a Toyota Prius and own a dog, you can target those exact people on Facebook ads. I don't know what kind of niche industry that would be that I just gave that example for, but you can get as fine or as broad as you want when it comes to Facebook ads.
And have you noticed that with the Facebook ads that maybe it's easier to put those ads out there if you're outside of the internet marketing space, or is there a secret to that?
Yes, no, great question, Robert. My students, and that's why I love working with students who are soccer coaches or who are health coaches or who are travel agents. Those students are so much fun to work with because if you're outside of the IM niche, most of those markets have never been marketed to properly. I mean, the soccer coaching industry, for example, I swear my student must be one of the few people in the world targeting these soccer coaches on Facebook because he's generating webinar signups for 75 cents a sign up. So when he spends $500 on a Facebook ad campaign, he's getting 700 coaches to sign up for his webinars. So if you can talk to 700 people on a webinar, you can bet your bottom dollar that you're going to get at least a few sales. And that way, if you've got $1,000 product, you're looking at a pretty sizable business pretty easily.
Oh yeah, and I mean that amount for 500 bucks, that's a dang no-brainer.
Yeah, exactly. It's insane. How else can you speak to 700 people for $500 and offer them your $1,000 product? You're right. It's a total no-brainer.
So what do people actually see? Like, I mean, continuing with like the soccer dad type of thing. So let's say like some other soccer coach is on Facebook and they see some kind of ad that's targeted to them. So like, what do they kind of see in the ad and in the landing page they click over to more or less?
Yeah, great questions. So typically the ads will just speak to the benefits. I mean, so many marketers, we know that you don't want to sell a drill, you want to sell the hole. Like people aren't actually interested in the drill, they're interested in making a hole in the wood or in the wall or whatever they're looking to buy. So you got to speak to the results. So for the soccer coach, his example, his webinar or his ads typically speak to, do you want to improve your players, your team, and your coaching? Sign up for this free webinar. I'm going to show you the 3 ways that you can make your team better this season. So it's strictly results and benefits based. And then when people actually click the ad, they get taken to a very simple page. It's just a picture of a soccer coach out on a practice field, and it advertises the free webinar, shows them the date and time of the webinar, and they can sign up right then and there. It's literally nothing fancy. It's super effective because it speaks to the results that people are actually looking for.
Awesome. And again, it seems like even the way you explain it, it's very go from the idea to having it in place very quickly and not a lot of fanciness, no 30 or 50 step process, just whatever is the simplest thing that gets it done.
Yeah, exactly. No 67 steps here for sure. And Robert, the one thing I want to point out for people who are listening to this and saying, this sounds cool, it sounds like a quick way to get started. You can even sell something from a webinar that you haven't even created yet. So if you could come up, for example, with an 8-week program that you want to sell online, you can sell it and then host those 8 weeks live with your students, record those, and then turn it into a product afterwards. So it really is a quick way to go from idea to $10,000.
So is this all that you do? Is this like your primary business? You find people who need online presence, who need a product, who need coaching clients, and you set this system up for them. You get the Facebook ads and the webinar and all that stuff set up for them.
Yeah, so the fun thing for me is that I stopped doing client-based work back in 2013. So I haven't done client-based work in over 3 years now, which is great. So I've got this system honed in an 8-week process that people can go through these 8 weeks that I've laid out, do the work, take the action items that I've given to them, and roll this entire system out in their own. And my real business, like what I do on a week-to-week basis, is I welcome new students into the program, and then I host Tuesday night group calls with my students usually. So every Tuesday night I'll get on and it kind of looks like the Brady Bunch. We're all on video interacting and I answer their questions. I hop on their screens. I take control of their screens and help them out. But yeah, that's absolutely how my business is. And a lot of my students have set up their businesses in very similar ways.
Awesome. So we talked about like the soccer dad. So can you give us like one other like kind of cool niche or cool case study where you set some stuff up for them?
Yeah, totally. So one of my students who's going through right now, she's got an awesome business that she's rolling out, and she calls it the A-List Workforce Academy. So she really targets people who are fresh out of undergraduate, so 1 to 5 years out of school. They're in an entry-level corporate position, and they're wondering, how the heck do I climb this corporate ladder without, butt kissing, without playing all these political games within an office setting. So she's teaching people who are right out of school how to climb the corporate ladder without all those other things that none of us really enjoy. So she's created this academy where people get that access to her. They get these pre-made training videos where they learn how to communicate effectively over email. How should they present themselves at work? What are the even little things like what are the items they should have on their desk at work, at their cubicle, so that no matter what happens, she calls it the office survival toolkit. If you spill something on you, you should have a Tide to Go pen. All these things that you just wouldn't think of. And she's providing this awesome service and awesome value to people who have those problems.
How to get ahead without sleeping with the boss, because that's my problem. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
No, you hit it right on the head, Robert. It's exactly that type of concept.
So cool. So I mean, and I like that. Like, I mean, I don't have as many coaching clients as I like, and it's always nice to kind of play around in someone else's space, especially like how, you know, you and me, we have all these tools, but the problem is that it seems like a lot of our competitors have the same tools. So it's really cool to go into a space where people don't even know that these things exist, right? Like the autoresponder, the funnel, the webinar, all that cool stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it always gets a kick out of people when I say the F word because then I joke around that the F word stands for funnel because so many people that you're right, they don't know what a funnel is. It's easy within our little IM or internet marketing world to feel like everybody knows these things, but you take one step outside and they've got no clue.
And if someone wants to work with you, or if someone is in one of those niches where no one else is doing anything like that, I mean, it's game over. They're the top dog, at least until everyone else jumps on.
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it.
So I know that you have a book and then you have a program called The Ultimate Profit Model. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. So the book is called Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur, and it's targeted at the exact people who we've talked about here today, who they know that they want to be an entrepreneur, but they don't know what steps to take from going or to go from Wantrepreneur to entrepreneur. So I'm actually giving 1,000 copies of that book away for free. People can just go to imetbrian.com now that they've met me here on your podcast. So they can just go to imetbrian.com. And that's a fun book because I walk them through kind of the concept of what we talked about. How do you come up with an idea for your product or service? Where do you find your ideal person? How do you even know who your ideal person is? And then how do you turn them from just a prospect into a new paying customer or client? So that's the book. And then the program, the Ultimate Profit Model, is my flagship program. So that's the 8-week program that we've talked about. It's really a group program where people get direct access to me, and they can learn more information about that at ultimateprofitmodel.com. Or the easiest way is actually to just get a free copy of my book at imetbrian.com, and then they can sign up for one of my webinars and see the entire system in play and in process, see how it all works, and they can sign up for the Ultimate Profit Model there. And I will throw this little tip in. That's actually the most affordable way to get into the Ultimate Profit Model is to grab my book for free, show up to my webinar, and I offer a special discount at the end of my webinar.
Nice. So you're not just the guy who teaches about webinars and about funnels, but you actually do them.
Yes, you're right. And that's the one thing that kills me is that when people are teaching, oh, the best way to get new leads and new customers is through quizzes, but then they're not using quizzes to do that. That kills me when I see them doing webinars for that. So yeah, I practice what I preach. I'm always testing things and rolling out new effective things to my students. So absolutely.
Well, cool. And I mean, along those lines, and as we're kind of winding this call down, do you have anything new and exciting coming up? Do you have like some new idea or some new project that you're really pumped up about?
Yeah, I'm super pumped right now about developing a more advanced mastermind because so many of my students are getting really crazy levels of success right now, and they're just kind of chomping at the bit and they're asking me, "Well, Brian, what's next? You know, I've got these webinar funnels going, I'm making good money. What's next?" So right now I'm really putting together an all-in-one experience. It's going to be part in-person experience where we're going to fly to cool places around the world and mastermind, as well as online stuff to really take them to the next level.
Awesome. I mean, isn't that a nice place to be where instead of you having to scramble for ideas, you have people telling you what they want you to make for them?
Yeah, it's the best, definitely. No doubt about that.
Awesome. So, pretty good lifestyle to have and lots of good ideas packed in here. So, can you tell us one last time where people can get the ultimate profit model and where they can get the book? That way, we know they have the link.
Yeah, definitely. So the best way to get both is now that they've met me here on your show, just go to imetbrian.com. That's Brian. So imetbrian.com. They can pick up a free copy of my book. They just have to pay shipping and handling. I'll sign it, send it to them wherever they are. And once they get their hands on my free book, they can sign up for the webinar right there. It takes them straight to the webinar sign up page. And from the webinar, they'll see the entire thing in play and they can sign up for the ultimate profit model from there. So imetbrian.com.
Awesome. Works for me. And so, yeah, thanks, Brian, for coming on the show, and thanks for sharing all your little nuggets of gold wisdom and all these things. And the thing I like the best is that I know that even though you said you're not like the Mr. Numbers guy, but still like just the way that you explain all this stuff is like very straightforward, very simple. Just follow the steps, skip the steps, don't apply, and I like that way of thinking.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. It was a blast coming on the show today. I hope people got some value, and I'd love to do it again soon.
To subscribe to future episodes, go right now to robertplank.com/iTunes and click the subscribe button.